So the motion is tabled in our full council for Thursday the 25th of July. It initially is, so what it's asking for is for the council to recognise that the genocide of 1984 and that commemorate the 40th anniversary, and look to raise awareness about what happened and the rights of the Sikh community, and raise awareness around the issue of anti-Sikh discrimination. The main points that follow on in the motion are designed to ask the leader of the council to write to the Defence Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, and indeed the leader of the government to look to write to foreign government, in this case primarily India, looking for a number of things to happen. And we'll go through obviously the separate issues that we've raised, which all I think interconnect.
Sure. And what was the reason for you guys to put this motion forward? I'll give that question to
Thank you. Having lived in Slough, as you know, Slough's got a very large Sikh community, and it was our own residents, friends who we grew up with, have started raising these concerns over the last few months, especially Mr. Sabjit Singh, who's been actually threatened personally for his own safety, and the police are aware of it, the UK High Commission is aware of this, and it was their concerns that had come to us, and we decided now was the time, as this was the first full council for us independent councillors, and this was the first point of agenda. We wanted to raise this at the first available opportunity, that these things cannot go on. Our residents should be able to live within the town without the fear of their life.
Sure. And moving forward, how do you think this plan can move forward, and as in how are you going to move this forward going on?
So one of the first things, as my colleague highlighted, is to raise awareness, is to bring it to people's attention that this anti-Sikh crime cannot go on. What's happening in Punjab is not right. We have a voice here. We've got a member of parliament. Currently, our Foreign Secretary David Lammy is in India at the moment. And the timing of this motion is to put the pressure and raise our voice to him, to say he needs to speak up and use their diplomatic relations they have with India to bring this to an end and to hold them to account.
And anyone that's kind of not for the motion, what's your thoughts on that? What's the reasons for someone not to be for the motion? Because it is it's a humanitarian cause where you're standing up for human rights. What could be the reasons why people would not stand for the motion?
It's a human rights issue, as you said. All of us are the same. The way we look at it is regardless of your religion, your race, your beliefs, no. Whether what's happening in Kashmir, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Punjab, genocide, innocent killings of human lives is not on. We will not be silent. At this time we will speak up for it. Anybody that's not supporting it, it begs a question, because this is not an issue which is isolated, it's happening around the world. Why would they not support it? Then they have to question their own belief and their own morals.
So Sabina, there was an inquiry that was promised to the Sikhs for the 1984 attack on the Golden Temple, the Darbar Sahib, and that was promised by the Labour government, because the Conservatives were the ones that were responsible for responsible for sending an SAS officer there, and Margaret Thatcher was a part of the plan in place. Now, what do you think the Labour government can do now for the Sikhs with the inquiry in itself?
Well, I think the Labour Party have been talking about this for some time, and now, I mean, there was one thing, government in waiting, but now they are a government, albeit sooner than we expected. I believe the deputy leader has, Angela Rayner, has said, I think very early on, post the election, that she would keep the pledge and the promise. We will hold her to that. So one of our main motion is around recognising that this incident did happen. Sure. We haven't mentioned actually the inquiry, because that's something already pledged by the Labour Party. We would hold them to that. Again, our campaign in awareness is about ensuring that the government are true to their word now that they are in power. And obviously what the lessons learned are, because whether we look at, again, we had a motion quite recently in the Council on Gaza. What we're saying about anti-arms trading, what we're looking at, any complicity of the UK government in any type of activity where innocent lives are lost, then we must ask questions and we must hold our government to account, whoever that government is. So I think if we're true to our rights around all human lives have the same value, then and the UK especially needs to hold to account its allies. So Israel is an ally, as well as India is an ally and friend of the United Kingdom. And we think then if you are an ally, then you should obviously conduct yourself in a manner which is befitting of an ally.
What do you think's the reason why these two countries are working together, and how the UK government can confront them about this master plan of theirs to commit genocides across the globe?
Well, our motion, we call upon the government to unequivocally condemn all human rights abuses. We mention, obviously, the Punjab, but we also mention, and it would be disingenuous of myself as somebody whose forefathers have come from Kashmir, not to mention the issue that's happening in Jammu and Kashmir. And I don't profess to know anything to any real detail or substance of what happens in Punjab, but I know from my grandfather and our forefathers the story of what happened to Kashmir. And particularly where we are in Pakistan, where people, not just post-partition what happened, but then what's happened obviously since then, again with the Article 370, the current government in India has shown the disdain it has for minority groups, and our motion calls for that we should that the government should be holding account its ally. I think as far as a relationship with India and Israel is concerned, I believe some time ago the Prime Minister for India had said that before you deal with Kashmir, deal with the issue of Israel and its human rights violations. And of course, one is then linked to the other. And some of the, and if you look at some of the weaponry that's used in Jammu and Kashmir, it similarly has been used in Israel indiscriminately against Palestinians across the West Bank and Gaza.
Do you have anything to say about the targeted killings that have taken place recently? The Prime Minister Trudeau came forward and he spoke about killings that have taken place across the Canadian soil, and they expelled the Indian consulate members at the time. And then the American government's spoken out about these targeted killings as well, where they've caught somebody that's from the from India itself, who was working for the Indian government, and he's been extradited from Czech Republic. In these sort of situations, what do you think the British government and our local MPs and councillors should be doing to raise concerns about these incidents that have been taking place just in the recent months?
So I guess this comes under transnational discrimination, and we know that there's an active campaign. It's something again, we can't speak about what's happening in international waters, and I guess even until, like my colleague said earlier, we weren't actually aware that it would actually happen on UK soil. Maybe naively so, but when it's across the pond in Canada or America, you kind of think it's something far away. So we weren't ignorant to that. I certainly wasn't. However, when we came to know that actually this happened not just in UK soil, but in our very town, we started to do our work. So actually, for those people that say we've just woken up all of a sudden because we've become independent councillors, the fact of the matter is those that work in political circles, whether locally or nationally, will know that there are constraints. There's political constraints from political parties, and there are party lines, and there's a whip system. So that adds many, many layers of constraint, and what we named in our resignation letter a gagging. So there's many things that we cannot speak about, or many of our colleagues that will not speak about. So now that we're independent councillors, we don't have a whip system. We're not bound by any party rules. Of course, we have our own rules and our own standing orders, which are about us representing our people. Now, our motion is about our town, and specifically about the issue around the safety and the freedom of whether you're an activist or just a citizen of this town, that you should be afforded, or the human rights that this country allows us to have. Now, the fact that anyone is targeted, let alone two people in our town that we believe, there may be more, but from what we know of, there is at least two people in our town who are Sikh activists, and who now the human rights are being violated. to be offered, from what I hear, bulletproof jackets from agencies is a concern. And it's a concern actually people in this council as councillors we should have been made aware of, and we weren't. Our MP, I believe, was made aware of this through obviously his own through the intelligence services. But I think the people of this town, it's time that we knew about these things and that we all stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and we support those members of our community, because in this country you are afforded rights and freedoms to have an opinion, and it might not be the flavour of the week, it might not be liked. For example, one of the motions we talk about is the referendum. Some might say, well, what do two Muslims know about the Punjab referendum? I don't know. I don't know about the referendum, is the honest truth. What I do know is that those people that I know in Jammu and Kashmir, who are still waiting for a referendum on the right of self-determination, as afforded to them by the United Nations, are still waiting for that right. And of course, I think it's only right and proper that at the time that those arbitrary lines were drawn by a foreign country, that the same right should have been afforded to those people in Punjab. And ultimately, if we look at, again, some history, why Pakistan was created or why Bangladesh came to be created or why indeed there still at the moment is the line of control in Kashmir, was because people wanted safety. People wanted the safety of being able to exercise their religious and their moral duties in accordance to the way that they wanted to live their life. Now, I think if people are so minded, and I think there was a referendum that took place in Slough in 2021.
Yes, there was. Yeah.
Nearly 10,000 people took part in that.
Yes.
So they have a voice. So in this motion, I'm not saying that it's a voice for all Sikhs or indeed all Indians or all Punjabis, but I think allowing somebody, just like the Scottish National Party, that's their one policy, is saying, well, they want a referendum to remove themselves from the United Kingdom. And so be it. They have actually been a democratic force, and people have elected for that. And I think the people in Punjab should be allowed a similar ability to be able to at least demonstrate at that moment in time what they want, whether they and how they choose. And I think the more, and I guess the big question, and I can't answer this because it is real politics, is why, if people are allowed the freedoms and rights to be able to exercise and live their lives the way that they want to in complete freedom, without fear, without favour, then why would anyone want a referendum?
That's right.
So, but it's not for me to decide. It's for the people to decide themselves.
No,
all we are asking for in the motion is that our parliamentarian, our MP, puts that on the floor in the government, and that he asks and use whatever powers, whatever leverage that we have on the Indian government to allow those people in Punjab to exercise their right to have a vote, and allow it through a democratic process, so that they can hear the will of their people.
Thank you. One last question for Waqas. What's your message for the wider community out there, for the local community of Slough?
So my message is quite clear, that this motion is not to create division, nor is it to strike religious divisions or sentiments. It's actually, as councillors, we are duty bound to represent our residents, and we are here to be their voice. Our residents in Slough should feel like they can live here, exercise their human rights, freedom of speech, without the fear of their lives. Okay, at the moment, we've identified at least 2 people. There may be many more. And if you look at those 2 people, it's not just them. It's their immediate family, their friends, their neighbours that are fearful as well, the impact that it's going to have. And we're trying to raise that awareness and trying to get everybody on board to understand what is going on. And at the same time, as your councillors, we are your voice. If you've got concerns, we share your concerns. Being a Punjabi myself, both sides of Punjab are the same for me. And I feel what's happening in India affects me much as it would be if it's happening in Pakistan.
Thank you for joining us today, and hopefully this message reaches the thousands, and the Slough community comes together for this motion and they support it. Thank you.